Hello, listener. I want to remind you to check out my new Ultra Tri-Fest coming to Whistler, British Columbia in August 2024. It has 5 racing formats to choose from, and the feature event will be the new Ultra 515 Worldwide Championships, in which racers from every 515 race in the world may attend. Get all the details at ultratrifestcanada.com, and feel free to contact me personally with any questions.
You're listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. We are starting off Season 5 by introducing you to another of the 515 events from around the world. My guests today will explain why the UMUK remains a tough race that is kept to the small Ohana field. And maybe these guys will introduce you to some ideas for your own bucket list. Today, I have 2 guests joining me to discuss the 515 race that they organize. One who competed at such races as the Norseman Xtreme, the Marathon Des Sables, and UMUK. The other played rugby until he was 30 and then focused on competitive cycling. In 2009, he rode every stage of the Tour de France. He has competed at Ironman Wales and a race called the Brutal. His venture into 515 came in 2019 when he also competed at the Ultraman UK. Together, they are now the race directors of the Ultraman UK. This is Ben Peresson and Richard Groome. Welcome to 515.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Ben, did I get your last name correctly?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good. I think what I would like to do at the beginning here is just go back and forth a little bit so we get to know you guys.
Okay.
And then you can each kind of take turns answering a few of these questions so we get a little bit of background on you.
Definitely.
Maybe we'll start with kind of like, what is your day job, your family commitments, any serious hobbies that you have outside of organizing a race? Ben, how about if you go first on that?
Yeah, so at the moment, I don't have any hobbies. No, I was going to say, so I got 2 boys, age 6 and 2. It's going to turn 3 very soon. That means that I don't have any time really. It's
That's
just
full-time.
that's full time. So my boys keeping me busy. They are great, full of energy, like all boys. And my day job, I work for the Environment Agency. So it's equivalent in the States as the EPA, Environment Protection Agency. So it's department from the government looking after the environment. I'm a regulator. And that's pretty much what I'm doing at the moment. I like to go to parkruns. I don't know if you're familiar with those in Europe. Yeah, 5K. But that's all I do. I don't have time to do anything else really. Yeah, that's me.
And are you guys both located in the in Wales proper?
None of us. No, I live a small town near Cambridge. And Richard, well, I can tell you where he lives. He lives closer to Wales than me, but not in Wales. We both live in England.
Okay, Richard, tell us a little bit about your background.
So as Ben said, I live in the Cotswolds, which is an area of outstanding natural beauty in the west of England. Live here with my wife and a 14-year-old son. And when I'm not obviously helping organise the race, I'm a sales guy for a software company based in California. So actually, I spend a lot of time traveling around the world, dealing with customers, and as well as that, I've also just bought an old farmhouse, so I'm busy renovating that. And if I get any time, then I'm out on my bike or running the trail. So again, like Ben, pretty busy.
Yeah. Are you going to try and apply for that TV show where they talk about people that are renovating those old farmhouses? Have you seen that?
Yes, yes and no. We've looked at it. It's almost we're not doing anything crazy enough, or the house isn't as interesting enough. So it's
Okay.
we could, but actually we just want to crack on and get the house done rather than wait for the TV company. So yeah,
I've actually watched that show over here in Canada.
yeah.
All right. So Ben, you're the one who participated in the Marathon des Sables and the Norseman event. Can you tell us a little bit about what were the steps that you took along the way to getting into doing these extreme multi-day events? Like I know you had a background in mountaineering and scuba diving and mountain biking when you were younger. Is that the kind of stuff that helped push you on to that path?
Well, I was obviously when I back at university, I was doing mountaineering and scuba diving, and I loved it. I came to England. Obviously, I'm not English. Came to England in 1995, and I was just at that time I was just running a bit and playing football. Or where you have soccer in the States and Canada, playing football, and I did that for about 10 years. But it got to the point that it wasn't enough. So I started doing marathons. And then 2011, I did my first Ironman. It was also my first triathlon. There's not a triathlon in my life. So I thought, jump, why not? I've done a marathon. How hard can it be? An Ironman. So I did that, but I really, really enjoyed. I did, that was in Bolton here in the UK, in England. Then in 2012, I did Wales, Ironman Wales, like Richard has done. And to be honest, Norseman and the other one I did in 2013 was the World Championships in Hawaii. And they both came in by luck. For Norseman, you have to, you go into a ballot. So you apply, you send your application, and they might get 4,000 or 5,000. And I think they only accept 270 applications. I think so. So I applied for that, thinking I will never get it. And then I apply as well for the World Championships, Ironman World Championships. But back on those days, we used to have a ballot. So where you pay a fee, and it was the lottery program.
Right.
I thought I'm going to enter as well. I won't probably get it. So I booked for Ironman Lanzarote, which is not far from us. So 3.5, 4 hours playing, which is not far. I ended up doing all three because somehow by luck I got into Norseman and also into the World Championships, and I loved it. I loved the experience. I loved in Norseman. I loved the fact that you need a support crew. So it's all the organization behind it, not just you thinking about your training and your nutrition. It was also thinking about, okay, what does my support crew need? What do I have to tell them that they have to provide for me? How to explain to them and be prepared, because my support crew was my sister and a best friend. They never done this. They never raced either. So they never been
experienced crew. Yes.
Yeah. Plus, they never done the race either. They never done a triathlon in their lives. They never run a marathon. So they, so I love that, the opportunity for me to explain what they had to do and, trying to organize myself as well. Love that. I had a little break in 2014, but because of a support crew and the multi-day event was more appealing to me, then I booked for Marathon Des Sables and UMUK both in 2015. And again, I did with the all organizers, UMUK, and I loved it. Then was my wife, my support crew, and one of my best mates who did the Marathon Des Sables with me, Darren. They crew for me, and I just loved it. I love the venue. Don't know if you've been to Snowdonia, but for me, it's one of the most beautiful national parks there is. Full stop. It's just a beautiful park. It's hard. It's harsh, as you're probably aware of the weather in the UK.
Yeah.
And Wales can change in a matter of a couple of hours, from sunny to just torrential rain. So I love that challenge. And that's how I end up doing those races. It's just, I love the challenge, doing something I probably shouldn't be doing. But then who says why not? So I like to, when I talk to people, I like to tell them, why not? Why not this? And take it on, see what you can do. So that's my sort of how I got into UMUK, by doing the race.
If I can just follow up with you on this a little bit, because a lot of people don't know the Norseman probably as well in North America as they do in Europe. So can you tell me a little bit about that race? How extreme is the Norseman?
Norseman's, it's quite up there, I would say. So you get to the the entry point where you have to take the ferry. So you take a ferry in the middle of a fjord around 4 a.m. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but you have to then jump from the ferry in the middle of the night. It's still dark by the time we got to the water, and then the race start. It's a 3.8K swim straight along the fjord to the coastline you have the transition area. The bike I thought it was brutal. The bike, you go through 2 or 3 different mountain passes, up and down. It goes forever. Also, the weather wasn't kind when I did it in 2013. We had side rain. It's just, again, love that because of how harsh it was. Then the marathon. The marathon, see if I remember this well, I think the first half, 20K is pretty flat. When I say flat, that's loose. But then you just go up and up and up and up to the point that the last 5 to 8K, I think you finish up in the mountain. And again, your support crew has to be with you all the time. One thing I wanted to explain as well is they have only 250 to 70 around that amount of athletes, but only the first 160 to get to checkpoint on kilometer 30 of the marathon are allowed to go up to the mountains. The first 160, and those guys will get, if they go to the top of the mountain and finish, they get a black shirt. If you are 161 plus, then you have to finish the marathon, but you finish at the base of the mountain, and you get an award. You get your white shirt. You also a finisher, but that's the distinction between the two.
But not the extreme finisher of the going to the top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like that. That's a nice little feature to get people that incentive to get there early and get that extra piece.
When I got to T2 on that race, I was 182. And I knew in the first 20K, I have to overtake 22 people on the marathon for me to get to, because from kilometer 20 to 30, it's all uphill. So it's very hard to overtake.
Right.
So I had a run of my life, and I finished 158, I think I finished.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, it was, I had to have the run of my life to overtake 22 people in 20 kilometers, which sounds doable, but it's just, you don't know how far they are from you when you reach to T2. Yeah. And everybody who does, to be honest, everybody who does Norseman is well trained as a proper. It was funny when I told my friends, when I go there and I put on my little bike in the transition area, and I see everybody just looks so professional, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Right. This is not my place. But there you go, and then I got my black shirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was pretty happy with that.
I'm glad to hear you didn't blow yourself up trying to catch those people to get to the place where you could get the black shirt.
To be honest, that was in my mind. I was thinking, is a black shirt or nothing. Also, at one point I was thinking like that, thinking, I'm not going to come back ever, because I'll probably won't get another place. So this is your chance. So just go for it.
Nice.
But it paid off. I have to be honest. because it was hard. It was hard.
Excellent. So, Richard, now I understand that you did your first Ironman Wales at age 41, but prior to that, you were into some competitive cycling. Can you tell us a little bit about the cycling you were doing?
Yeah, I think it was, competitive is probably too strong a word. So competitive with myself.
Okay.
Rather than, taking part in sportive, so kind of timed but non-competitive. So I've never done any racing or anything like that. So my sort of journey into cycling was very much I stopped playing rugby. Had a friend who was going mountain biking, and I just felt like I was missing out. So I thought, right, I'm going to go and buy a mountain bike at lunchtime. And went cycling with him in the evening. And then probably like 2 or 3 years later, I was running a charity at the time, and I came across this guy, and he just came up to me one day and he said, I'm doing this challenge. It's called the Raid Pyrenees. So ride from coast to coast in the sort of border between France and Spain across the Pyrenees. Yeah. And he said, do you want to come? And I'm just one of these people that just say yes to things. So I kind of rock up. He then tells me that the challenge is to do it in 100 hours. I'm like, okay. So I'd never ridden a road bike in any mountains. I'd never ridden it anywhere other than somewhere fairly flat in the UK.
Oh, wow.
He tells me that you have to do this in 100 hours. So we start on Monday morning. So you got till Friday lunch to do it. So I just basically follow him up and down all the big cols of the Pyrenees that the Tour de France go over. We finish in 81 hours, and I was absolutely dead on my feet, and he was pretty fit. And then I come home, and then I start reading about the Raid Pyrenees, find out that most people do it over 7 to 10 days. And I was just like, oh, we just did it in 4.5. In 4 days. So that kind of got me onto this thing of like, well, that seemed okay. And I'd got an old Fausto copy steel road bike. It was really heavy. Was pretty much wearing my rugby kit. And then I just kind of thought, well, okay, that was cool. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the mountains. And that kind of got me on my way.
Oh, wow. That's great. So that ignorance is bliss sometimes, right?
I think actually it is completely my thing. Even if I go out on a ride with my club, I'm that guy that I never look at the route. Mm-hmm. I just kind of tag along. Even if I want to create my own routes, I don't sort of analyze it too much. Kind of go, like, it's just about keeping going. So
yeah, that's almost anti 515 racer type of behavior. They're usually in the Strava and breaking down every little piece that they can of the data, and you're just going to ruck up and go.
Yeah, and it's the same guy actually. He 2 years later, he then said that we were really inspired. I was running a cancer charity, and we were really inspired by Lance Armstrong and coming back to the tour. And of course, we were super fans at the time. Yeah. Obviously, things change. This friend of mine said that why don't we go and ride a few stages of the Tour de France in 2009, that'll be fun. So I just kind of again went along with it and just sort of went, okay, so how which stages are we going to do? And then we were just literally having a coffee one morning. He goes, well, why don't we just do all of them? I'm like, okay. So he just, again, threw himself into it. And 2009 doesn't seem that long ago, but it was pre-Strava. So that whole thing of it doesn't exist on Strava.
Doesn't exist anywhere.
Strava didn't exist. So it was like, our whole thing about the route navigation was we bought the Tour de France magazine and ripped a page out. So we bought 2 magazines, ripped a page out each. I put one in my pocket, he put one in his pocket, and that was our route. But yeah, we did 5 countries for 2,174 miles over the 21 days of the tour. So, and it was just like, and I just looked at it as, it was just a great adventure. It was just,
that's awesome.
That mentality.
Yeah. And how often did you get off course, do you think?
Quite a few times. Mainly one thing I definitely learned is the Tour de France goes down motorways and major highways. Mm-hmm. And obviously they close them. But so sometimes we had to sort of deviate off those, and other times we found ourselves riding down, pretty much like freeways being hounded by trucks going, what are you doing here? But no, we didn't really go off course. The people that went off course, actually, back to one of Ben's points, was our support crew. Our support crew were terrible. I got two guys who'd never been to France. They'd never driven a van. They didn't like any insects. They couldn't read a map, and they were just lost the whole time. So I think they got lost all the time. But it actually showed the importance of a good support crew for future events. So.
Yeah. And I believe nowadays they actually have like tour groups that go and do that, right?
Yeah. And again, it was pretty much pre-social media, so we didn't get a lot of exposure for it. But now you can go and sign up and ride every stage of the tour, and it's organized. But there you go.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story. Just pulling the page out of the magazine as your map.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this other race that you did called the Brutal. It's always about the name of the race. How bad can we make it sound like this race is? Tell us what the Brutal is.
I do. Should I just tell you how I got into the Ironman first?
Oh yeah, sure.
So this is an interesting story. So basically, I'd done a fair amount of cycling, and so riding like a couple of thousand miles, I knew I could do. And basically, I was sitting down having dinner one evening with my wife, and I was going to do a ride with work, which was 1,000 kilometers across Europe. And she made this comment. She goes, "Well, when are you going to do something that's hard that you're not good at?" And we just happened to be watching this program about these women who were going on a fitness journey, and they were going to do a half Ironman. And I just made this flippant comment of like, "Well, it's a half Ironman. Anybody can do a half Ironman." And she went, "Okay, why don't you enter an Ironman?" And so literally 12 weeks before Ironman Wales, I just literally got online, entered Ironman Wales, and went, right, that's it, I'm in. I then took myself down to, again, hadn't really researched about how hard Ironman Wales was, didn't realize it's one of the toughest ones in Europe. And I didn't own a wetsuit. I hadn't done any swimming. So I just kind of went for it. So Ironman Wales is a fantastic event, and very well supported, and even things like people calling out your name as you go past. I thought, well, how do they all know my name? And I didn't realize that my name was written on my shirt and stuff. But that was cool. But the Brutal. So the Brutal then became what's next? So I did Ironman Wales, finished in a good position for me, which was in the top half of the field. So that was okay. Mm-hmm. But mainly just carried myself on the cycling. And then I just came across this event called the Brutal. So the Brutal is in North Wales, so very similar to where UMUK is, similar location. The why it's brutal, one is because like a lot of these things, you start in a very cold lake. So that's the swim is in a very cold lake. Mm-hmm. You then do 4 laps of a circuit. And actually, I think that was one of the most brutal parts, because brutally boring is doing laps. And that when we come on to Ultraman UK, is we don't do laps. Right. So anyway, you're riding laps. So riding 4 laps of the same circuit was, to me, was just like a real killer. But the real brutal thing about it is you do the first part of the marathon, and then you have to, for the last bit, you have to go through an extra transition on the marathon. You have to change your kit. You have to take a mountain pack with you. And now it's about 9-10 o'clock at night. You then have to go up and down the biggest mountain in Wales. So it's 1,084 meters. So what's that, like 3,500 feet? And you have to go up and down that in the dark. So that's the real brutal part of that race, is going up and down a mountain in the dark by yourself. So, and
is this like real mountaineering, like with the picks and stuff like that, or is it on a trail?
It's on a trail. But I think the real challenging part for me was it's a kind of trail that I'd never been up before. Mm-hmm. But you're kind of into that point where you're in you're in a very depleted state, in a very tired state, and actually just trying to find your way was really hard. It wasn't so much the physical exertion; it was more can you get up and down? So,
mm-hmm. So Richard, you did mention something else in there about a charity that you were working with or for. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you did for that and how you ended up getting into that situation?
And again, another one of those situations where I said yes. So basically, a friend of mine from university's father died of cancer, And he came up with this idea that to set up a charity called Sail for Cancer. His idea was to do a pro-am sailing race across the Atlantic. We quickly worked out that was quite hard and fraught with danger. So what we did was we came up with this using sailing as a mechanism to raise money, but then sailing as a mechanism to take people out on the water that were going through cancer treatment, so respite. So I was involved with the organisation for 10 years. Effectively became the operations director. And so, whereas Andy was the kind of the entrepreneur and the real driving force behind the organisation, I kind of made things happen, helped recruit people, got an office, helped with fundraising, and I felt pretty proud. We raised about £4 million in that time, and we provided 70 years worth of respite to people going through cancer treatment. So, it was really satisfying.
That's incredible. That's great. When you are organizing your UMUK, do you guys have any charities that you are attached to there, or do athletes coming in tend to have a charity that they're working with or for as well?
Yeah, there is a charity that it's called the Snowdonia National Park. Sorry, I have to edit that out. It's called Snowdonia Society. And it's a charity that look after the park, anything from going to places and do litter picking to, going and trying to educate people about the national park and the flora and the fauna that is in the park. They do a lot of stuff. So I got involved with them a few years ago when I started doing UMUK. I think the first contact was in 2018. And we had them in our where we had a venue, with all the information. 2018, 2019, I think when Richard did the UMUK was there, and still any money that we collected went to the charity. What people do normally in UMUK, everybody comes and they're raising money for their own charity, and it's something that is, I would say, unique, but it's very common in the UK with athletes. You find that a lot of them will raise money for their charities during not just UMUK, but an Ironman or multi-day events or even marathons. So yeah, it's a great thing to do. I think I did my part as well when I was racing as well. I would raise money for the Red Cross, British Red Cross. I raised money for OxFam. It's another charity known here. But the one that I wanted to link with the UMUK was the Snowdonia Society, and it's based in Snowdonia, obviously. Yeah.
And with your day job in the environmental protection, does that cross over at all into the actual environments that are there, or is it more of a global environmental protection kind of job that you have?
Well, the Environment Agency have many departments. The the department I work for is we are regulators of the industry, basically.
Okay.
So it's any industry that have emissions to air or emissions to water. So your chemical factories, your food and drink factories, your landfills.
Right. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultra Tri-Fest Canada, where you can race the traditional 515, a 515 relay, or a 515 non-stop. There's also a 360K format, which does not require a crew. And because we are hosting you in Whistler, there is also an ultra gravel race. Check us out at ultratrifestcanada.com. And if you've always wanted to go to a 515 World Championship, check out the information on the website about our new Worldwide Championships, which is available to every 515 racer of all time. Again, that is at ultratrifestcanada.com, coming to Whistler, British Columbia in August 2024. when I was looking at what races you guys have done, and we've talked about some of these, great races that you've done, I think you both listed the UMUK as your favorite race, though, and maybe not surprisingly, that's why you guys have kind of picked up the ball for the UMUK and are organizing it now. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of the race and how you both went from racing it to organizing it?
So the race started in 2011. The people in Hawaii were involved in the first the first 2-3 years.
Yeah, it was originally branded as the Ultraman Wales.
Yes, but yeah, Ultraman UK
or UK.
Okay. So it ran with the franchise 2011, 2012, and 2013, and then it came out. I don't know the reasons. I did the race in 2015, and I loved it. I loved the format. I loved the venue. I love the fact that what Richard mentioned, that is one loop. We don't, we went through the whole national park really in a couple of days on the bike. Mm-hmm. It's just a good race. The friendship you made with the other competitors and the support crews, it's just, I really enjoyed it. My friend Darren, who was also a director, not then, in 2015, he was my support crew, and my wife. Darren was going to do in 2017, and I was going to be his support crew. And but then when he contacted the organizers, he found out that they were not going to put the race anymore. So Darren came to us we have dinner here, and then Darren said, why don't we do it? How hard can it be? So okay,
how hard can it be?
How hard can it be? And so we said yes. I'm sort of like Richard. I said yes to almost anything and everything. So I said, okay, let's do it. So we bought the company in 2017, late 2017. So there wasn't any race in 2017, but we put our first race in 2018. Loved it. Only with 5 people, but I thought it went really well. We went the extra mile with the safety. Through all this time, 2017, 2018, when I took the race over, I was in communication with Steve Brown from Canada. You're probably familiar.
Yeah, he's been on the show a few times.
Yeah, Steve. We probably own everything to Steve. He really he gave us a lot of advice. Or advice. We would take the advice, or it was up to us, and he let us to be, to do the way we wanted. But he was just providing the advice, and to be honest, we took most of the advice. I thought it was great. He introduced us with the idea of then in 2019 to do 2 additional races. So we did a 515, and then we established the 355 and the team relay.
Well, I believe Steve Brown was also part of the team that went over to establish the original UMUK, and he I think he had some, part in that.
Yeah, he gave me the copy of the report he gave the organizers back then.
Yeah,
about how the race, how to improve the race. So, I still have it. I have a copy. It's about 3-4 page copy of all the notes he took. Mm-hmm. Back then. It's probably part of history. I should frame it now. So yeah, in 2019, with his advice and help, we put a 355 and the team relay. That's when Richard did his UMUK, and it's been great. We had the 355 went great. We have 7 athletes. I think we had 5 ladies. Actually, 1 from the States. She came just to do that race. A guy from Germany, I remember as well. He was, really enjoyed the transition between the Ironman and the and the ultra, full distance. He wanted to try something in the middle, so it was a great transition for him. So we put that in 2019. So it's those 3 races. 2020, obviously, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then we put our race in 2021. But Richard can tell you about, from the moment he he did the race in 2019. How he's been involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Richard. So you come and just do this one time, and then you immediately get involved in this. Like in my background, I've been coming to these races since 2010. Steve Brown races were the original Ultraman Canada, and then the Ultra 520. And so I was hooked into it for a number of years before I started being the co-race director at Ultraman Canada. And so, how is it that you come to one of these races and somehow they get their claws in you, and now you're helping to organize it?
So if I just basically talk about how I kind of found Ultraman UK. So my kind of background onto even hearing about an Ultraman race was my wife bought me a book by a guy called Rich Roll. And Finding Ultra. And so
I think that's the most common way people have come to this race.
Yeah. So I read the book, understood his background. He talked about a plant-based diet. I'd had high blood pressure, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to give it a go. So in my way of throwing myself into something two-footed, myself and my wife, after reading the book, both went completely plant-based, just overnight. And we've, 4 or 5 years later, we haven't looked back. And then he talked about this race, and literally we had this kind of conversation, and I looked across to Charlotte and went, he did this thing called Ultraman. I'm going to do that. And like literally before I'd said, I'm going to do it, she was like, oh, here he goes. So of course I was just with my sensible hat thought, well, I'd love to do the one in Hawaii. And I think actually Charlotte would have probably wished I had done the one in Hawaii. But I said, look, there's one down the road in Wales. Why don't I do that first? And then if I like that, then I'll go to Hawaii and off we go. So I remember writing the kind of note, because there was obviously criteria for entry to all of these races. And I was thinking, I wonder if I'll get in. And a bit like I think Ben said about the Norseman, I turned up. And my support crew was my wife, my dog, my father-in-law, and about a sort of 9-year-old son. So I turn up for this event, and it's a small event, which was completely different from the kind of the Ironman type events. So it felt really personal, felt very welcome. Despite the fact that everybody else seemed to have a really big support crew, and there were people with pace runners and massage people. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Because I just thought, I'm just going to turn up and I'm going to give it a go. And I remember talking to one of the guys on the event, and they were talking about split times they were doing on the marathon and what the strategy was. And I was just like, I'm just going to jump in a lake and swim for as long as I can. And then I'm going to jump on my bike, and then that'll be day one, and then we'll see what happens on day two. But what I was kind of really inspired by was meeting Ben, meeting Darren, and the people that were helping to organize the event, and just going, do you know what, these are just really decent human beings that are doing something because they're passionate about. And then I really shared the kind of camaraderie of people encouraging you to do it, mm-hmm. and the scenery. And that was despite the fact that the year I did it, the weather was horrendous. And everything took way longer than it really should have done. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just kind of, I loved it. I thought it was a really nice, low key, but really challenging event that, not too many people had heard about, but that made it really special to me as well, that it was not this big corporate thing. It was right. It was just a really challenging event with some great people.
Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about the weather at the race, because I know it's kind of known for that it is tough with the weather. Can you give me a little bit about not only the environment, but also maybe a little bit about your course? Describe it for people that might be interested in coming.
Yeah, so I think from the course perspective, it starts in a really, really beautiful lake called Lake Bala. And Lake Bala is pretty famous for swimming and open water swimming. It's a stunning lake, surrounded by mountains, and it's very green in Wales. So you see, it's absolutely stunning. It's pretty cold. It's about sort of 8 degrees centigrade, something like that. So it's a pretty cold lake. And then as you go through the bike, you're going through kind of, from, obviously fairly flat around the lake, to rolling hills, through some forestry, into much more open terrain, kind of moorland, open moorland. But all with a backdrop of the biggest mountain range in the UK, so or the biggest mountain range in Wales. So that's all pretty stunning. Day 2 then takes you from the race headquarters over the 170 odd mile course. Again, very undulating, through some sort of very naturally beautiful areas, through some historic industrial areas where there was a lot of mining. And then the bit that really clinched it for me was then there's a really beautiful section that follows the coast. So you literally riding, and on the right hand side, you've just got this beautiful coastline.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of, it's the end of the summer holidays. There's people sort of, out on the holidays, but beautiful sandy beaches that you just follow. And then you kind of turn inland, and now you're sort of following more sort of waterways, and then into kind of rolling hills, up into some really sort of stunning mountain passes, but obviously roads, which you kind of just can't help but look around and just think, oh my God, this is just stunning. And because you're not doing laps, you're seeing everything for the first time, and you're just kind of soaking it in. But to me, it was the fact that you get these lovely downhills as well. So there's a few bits of kind of what I'd say classic Ironman type things that people get excited about, like very long straight roads. There's not too many very long straight roads. The day 2 finish is just fantastic. About the last 20 miles is all downhill, which is just amazing. But again, on sort of single carriageway roads, there's not a lot of traffic, but it's just stunning scenery around. And then it takes you into the day 3 and the run. And again, you're running past lakes, through small villages, a couple of kind of more sort of touristic towns, towns focused tourism. You then run around Mount Snowdon, which is the high point. And then you got some really, really special sections, which is, cars aren't allowed, through kind of these ancient forests, which, I remember doing the event and people going, oh, your support crew can't go down there. And actually it was one of the best sections, because there's no cars, there's no people, you're by yourself a lot of the time, but absolutely stunning. The kind of 15 to 20% ups and downs, maybe not so stunning. I remember one of the spectators would just turn around and said, "Oh, don't worry, the next bit's all downhill." And I'm like, when you got like 20 miles in your legs, running down a 20% hill more than that. When you've got 40 miles in your legs running down a 20% hill, it is not fun. I'd rather be running up.
Absolutely.
The environment is just spectacular, and I think that's the piece of. I've taken other people back there on bike rides and got other friends to come and do the event, and that was the sort of the overriding thing is, if you're kind of looking for a fast, flat lap type course, you're going to be woefully disappointed. If you kind of want the biggest vistas you can get in the UK, in some beautiful scenery, you're going to be absolutely delighted. So,
that sounds absolutely marvelous.
But explain what happened in 2018 when you did it with the weather.
Oh yeah, so the weather. So actually the only event I've ever done a recce for, I did for this event. And I turned up a few weeks before, and the weather was absolutely stunning. The sea was completely flat. I swam in the lake. It was amazing. I turned up on the day, and the weather was just horrific. It was just like, huge waves in the lake. So I'd thought in my mind that the swim is a 6-hour cutoff, and I thought, well, I'm not a great swimmer, but anybody can run. Anybody can swim 6 miles in 6 hours. Of course, everybody can do that. So the water was cold. The way the course is, it's at the end of the lake, so all the wind was being channeled down the lake, and so we do laps on the swim, and it just seemed to be that me and many others just didn't seem to be making any progress on the on the swim. So we just kind of swim in, and I was thinking, I've got to get to that buoy. That's like, in my, I was just looking up against like 15, 20 strokes, and I'm there. Like 35, 40 strokes later, I'm thinking that buoy doesn't seem to be getting any closer. What he's getting. And so it was just a really, really challenging swim for everybody. So lots of us got out just before the cutoff. So we were just like, oh my God. And then he came to the bike ride, and I thought, right, here we go. I'm in my sweet spot. I remember my support crew came to me and said, Rich, you haven't drunk anything. Why haven't you drunk and eaten anything when we'd agreed to meet? I went, because I can't take my hands off the bars because it's so windy. So even on the downhills, I couldn't take my hands off the bars because it was just the wind was coming across and the rain was coming across. Day 2 was very much the same. Starts off quite nice, get onto the first major climb, and it's just horizontal rain. So I've got a video of it, trees bent over, horizontal rain. My support crew's looking out the window of the van, just going, whoa, what's going on? To me, actually, that was okay. I quite like the rain on a bike. Don't mind the wind. That was all good. And then by day 3, the bit where I wouldn't mind if it was windy and raining was the run. The sun comes out, absolutely glorious. But yeah, we pretty much 2 days of rain and wind. We just made it all the more epic. So.
Yeah, the conditions of extreme events is part of the event.
It was extreme. That was probably one of the worst years in terms of weather that we had, and I was just glad everybody came out alive. It was, as you're organizing the races, you always worry about people, not just them, but also support crews. And the wind was so bad. And I'm thinking, when I was driving from Lake Ballard back to town to wait for some of the riders, my van was shaking. I don't know if you have that experience, but I was driving and I couldn't. It was hard to keep the van straight. I was a quite tall van, but still, it was shaking. It was just so bad that I know there were other races on that same weekend, and they canceled the swim because we were close to do it, but I thought people want to do this.
And do your swimmers have kayak support with them right beside them?
We have. So we have. That's what I was going to mention. Because they do loops. We sort of streamline and decided not to have any kayaks, but we have a company that provides safety. Okay. So they have themselves kayaks. They have a speedboat, so motor boat. And I remember talking to them that morning when Richard did it, and I said, "Look, guys, you have to tell me. If you tell me it's impossible, it's too unsafe, we cancel." So it's sort of their call because they're professionals. They know what they're doing. And Mark, I remember his name. I mean, Mark said to me, "Look, let's start and see how they get on, and if we have to pull them out of the water and cancel the rest of the swim section, then it's fine. We'll do that."
Yeah. So just explaining that, Larry. So yeah, in terms of in the water, safety is obviously paramount. Yeah. So each individual doesn't have to bring somebody in a kayak. So there are kayaks and support safety people, obviously in very close proximity. Each time you come back to the lap, you can feed with your crew off a jetty, and at that point you can stand up. So yeah, in terms of it's a really safe swim. You're very close to the shore, but obviously it's challenging if the wind's blowing. But yeah.
And that's a similar format to what I'm going to be using in Whistler for my race. There'll be no kayaks as well. Yeah. Well, let me dig into this year's race a little bit, because that's going to be coming up in a short time. Not for us as we're recording this, but when this airs, it's going to be August 25th. So your race is coming up in just a few days. Can you tell me a little bit about the people that are in your race this year? Do you have anybody returning from previous years? Is it mostly new people? Continental Europe, where are they coming from? What do we have in the field?
We have about 10, a bit more than that, athletes. They're coming all from different backgrounds. We have accountants. We have some athletes, managers from gym managers, so general managers from a gym. Obviously, they are enthusiasts. They're very sporty. All of them, they've done Ironmans. A guy from Mexico, he has done already Ultraman Mexico a couple of times. Yeah, so it's all different backgrounds, different ages. You tend to see the Ultramans are more people in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
And beyond, yeah.
Yeah, rather than the younger 20s. And this is exactly the case for this year. It's people in their 40s and 50s.
Yeah. Well, that being said, Van Sanchez, who does the Ultra MX, it was your race that he set that record for being the youngest Ultraman competitor.
Yeah, how old was he? 20 something?
He was just barely 20.
Yeah, nice.
Just interesting. In 2021, I'd say the three guys that were battling out for the lead were in their 20s and early 30s.
No, wow.
So yeah, they were young actually. Particularly one of the runners was very young. So just like straight out of university. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is very different for the ultra community.
Yeah. Now this year, we have a good selection of people. As I said, they all done Ironmans, Ultramans in some cases, and also longer races. Double brutal. So the one that Richard did in Wales, similar area. Some of them have done the double. So you can do the double, you can do the triple.
Oh wow.
Double Ironman. So yeah.
Why'd you just do the single, Richard? Jeez.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, actually, it's all about the cap. Yeah, because a bit like the Norseman, you get the T-shirt, and I think for the single, I preferred the cap that you got.
Oh, that one looked better. Yeah.
And actually, no, I think it comes down to the laps. So, you hear about people doing different things, and I'm just like, why would you do that? It's multiple. I get the idea of like the Iron Cowboy, but at least he did it in different places. I'm like, there's a guy actually from Wales who's a couple of times tried to break the record for the most consecutive Ironman, but he always does it in the same pool, the same route, the same. I'm like, why would you do that?
Oh yeah.
So many beautiful places to ride your bike and go running. Why go to the same one? So.
Yeah. Now, you're also offering multiple formats at your race this year. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we still have the traditional 515, which is the main race. We still have we are promoting the 355 and the team relay.
Yeah, and interestingly, we changed up the team relay last time, and this was really, we're trying to encourage people to. I think in the past, some of the Ultraman events have well, what I saw and what Ben's idea was that, we have somebody that does the swim and somebody that does the riding and somebody does the running. I kind of implemented it to change that up. So actually, it's from more of a sort of camaraderie perspective. You could chunk it up in pretty much any way you like. So we had a team that won it the last time out. And so they did it, did a couple of laps of the swim, then change, couple of laps of the swim, play to their strength. So everybody got to swim, everybody got to ride their bike, everybody got to run. And it just became everybody's got to do, got to do the distance.
Right.
But it just became what I looked at was if you just had somebody that did the swim and then they support for, 2.5 days, then just didn't seem like a great way of supporting your teammates. So we did it a different way around, and that's the format we're gonna stick with.
And has that been received well by the athletes? Are we getting more teams because of that? Do you see them breaking it up that way, or do they still traditionally go day 1, day 2, day 3, or swim, bike, run?
So yeah, it's been really well received. I think the team format is yet to sort of really take off. So we're really looking for people for future years to do this. I've got some people in mind that I'm trying to put together an elite team of people to do this. So I've got some kind of really elite swimmers, cyclists, runners to do it. There's a guy called Rob Pope that I'm really hoping he's going to come and run with us in a future year. He's pretty infamous in the UK because he wrote a book called Becoming Forrest. So he ran the Forrest Gump Run across the US.
Oh yeah.
Which isn't just across the US; it's 5 times across the US. So he ran 15,000 miles in a year and a half. So I think he'd be pretty well qualified to be to be the kind of running anchor. So so Rob's going to listen to this, and I'm sure he's going to sign up for next year, and we're going to put together a super team for a future year.
Oh yeah. Well, when you call him out publicly, he kind of has to now, right?
Yeah, he's actually just in that kind of recovery mode of trying to earn some money. He's a vet by his day job, so he's trying to get a bit more money back in the bank and make sure he's not doing too much running. So yeah, next year he'll be good.
Yeah. Well, when we started off the interview, we were talking, and both of you were kind of really busy in your lives and not doing a whole lot of the sporting stuff right now. But when you get the opportunity, where are places you want to go and race and events you still want to do? Is there something out there on the bucket list for each of you that you might want to still take on when you get the opportunity?
I've got a list as long as my arm, which one of the things that I really want to do is ride the Great Divide. So obviously the trail from Banff down to New Mexico.
Yeah.
So that's on my list. The other thing is I've obviously ridden the Tour de France, but there's 2 other Grand Tours. So to ride in Italy and Spain, right, would be up there. All of these things come to time. It's 3 or 4 weeks out is a tough ask. But I've got some other challenges like that. But to me, it's about trying to find kind of adventurous challenges. I've said to Ben, I'm going to come back and do Ultraman again. And I thought about doing it this year. I just turned 50, so I thought I'm going to do it, and I'm going to win the 50 plus category. I've realised that that's quite a competitive category. Actually, as we're mid sort of house renovation, that's got to wait as well. But actually, I think the biggest thing I'd really love to do is actually to please my wife, and is to do an event somewhere where it's hot. So but yeah, I'm looking out for coming over and doing an event in Whistler or maybe Hawaii or Florida or somewhere else, just to experience somewhere hot that's not sort of rainy like sometimes it is in the UK.
Sometimes.
It's not always. We do have amazing weather, but yeah, that's the challenge.
If you happen to be there for those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I'm not thinking much about that, but I mean, there are a couple of races I really want to do in my life, but I think I need to win the lottery first to pay for them. But one is in my list, and whether I ever do it or not, I'm not sure. Is Race Across America.
Oh yeah.
I love to do that one. And I just every year I follow it up. I follow up. I'm always on my phone, see how everybody's getting on, and So yeah, that's in my list. But like Richard, I got a long list, more local ones as well. But at the moment I may be paused with the training, so I know it will take me probably about a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, to get to the fitness I used to be. Because I will probably start from scratch again. Plus, I'm like Richard, I'm 50 this year, couple of months. So we're not getting any younger. So there's always some injuries. There's always some always
a little niggle somewhere. Yeah,
something wrong with your body. So it's just that balance, trying to manage that. But yeah, I'll be back soon, hopefully soon enough.
Yeah, I'll probably add an answer to that, which is I think a future challenge is what I'd really love to see is Ultraman UK really grow to that point when If we could get 50, 100 people every year doing the event, understand, I think that would be not quite my life's work done, but I'd love to see more people do it, more people have that experience, and it really to get on the kind of global map, really. So I think that's a real challenge I've set in myself. So
yeah, well, I mean, even the Ultraman Canada for many years ran with 8-10 people. It did take a long time to catch on. The last, or 2 years ago, right after COVID, when I was still there as co-race director, we did it with 8 people. It's from time to time, there are those ebbs and flows where it just might go down a little bit. But if you keep putting on a good race, people will find their way to the UMUK, I'm sure.
Yeah, and to add to what Richard said, is love to have that number of people, but I think the idea is to keep true to ourselves as this race is a family race, personal race in terms of we like to keep it that way. It's not about making money. It's not about, because I never, when I think I mentioned to you in the preamp, when I decided to take this race on, it was never about business decision for me. It was
it never is for any of these races.
No, it was to do something because I love the venue, I love the race, I love the format, and I just make sure that this race continues in the UK. So yeah, even if we have 10 people or 1,500 people, we will keep the race as a in a personal level.
Right.
So what I like to meet every athlete, I like to talk to them and see the support crew, and I usually, you see me also on the route, so I go to a few spots on the route and cheer them up.
Yeah.
Just make sure that they're okay.
That
but
personal
also,
touch is there.
Yeah, but I'll be there for them just to make sure that they're okay, and and I like to see their faces. I like to see their smiles, even in the 20-degree elevation. 20. Yeah, even in those sort of inclinations, you can see how much they're enjoying the race. So yeah. That's the plan anyway.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your history with UMUK for me, and all the best of luck to the competitors that are showing up there in a few days for the next edition. We'll be following along. Can you tell us a little bit about, do you have any way for people to follow along? Do you do updates on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, on the links will be provided, but we obviously track this on Facebook. Instagram's probably the best place in terms of kind of race updates. So it's just check out the Instagram feeds. There's a whole bunch of photos that are posted all out through the event, and you'll be able to follow us there.
Excellent. And I'll post all of those in my show notes as well, so people will be able to get to them real quick. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. Good luck with the race coming up and the future races as well.
Perfect. Cheers, Larry. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Larry.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview, and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.